The sky turns the color of a bruise. Not gray, green. A sick, glowing green you have never seen before and instantly do not trust. The air goes still and heavy, like the whole world is holding its breath. Then your phone screams, that flat electronic shriek, and a box lights up. Take shelter now. You know exactly what to do. You go to the basement, you pull a mattress over your head, and you refresh the radar, and you count the seconds between the flashes. Now peel back a few thousand years. The phone is gone. The basement is gone. The radar, the sirens, the little glowing map with the red blob crawling toward your house, all gone. There is no word for the thing coming across the plain. There is no explanation. There is only a black column dropping out of the clouds and the ground beginning to disappear beneath it. So what did they do? For almost the entire history of our species, this was the reality. A tornado did not arrive as a Category 5 with a name and a track. It arrived as the end of the world. Imagine standing in tall grass with no roof anywhere for miles. The light goes strange. The birds stop. And then you hear it. A roar that does not sound like wind, that sounds like something alive, like a wall of sound walking toward you. Your ears pop. The pressure drops so fast it hurts. Dirt and branches and whole small trees lift off the ground and begin to turn. You have no concept of low pressure or rotating air. You have no concept of anything. You just know that the sky has come down to the earth and it is screaming. What do you do with a thing like that? The first thing the human mind does is the strangest one. It does not ask what the storm is. It asks who the storm is. This is not a guess. It is one of the most reliable things about the human brain. The anthropologist Stuart Guthrie spent his career on a single, unsettling idea, that human beings are built to see faces and minds in things that have neither. A shadow in the trees, a shape in the clouds, a pattern in the noise. Guthrie argued that we are anthropomorphizing machines, wired to assume that the world is full of somebodies rather than somethings. And the cognitive scientist Justin Barrett gave that wiring a name. He called it the hyperactive agency detection device. The part of you that hears a twig snap in the dark and instantly assumes a person, a predator, an intent before it ever assumes the wind. That instinct kept your ancestors alive. If the rustle in the grass is a lion, and you assume it is the wind, you die. If it is the wind and you assume it is a lion, you lose nothing but a heartbeat. So evolution tuned the dial all the way up. Better to see a hunter that isn't there than to miss one that is. Now point that instinct at the sky. A tornado is agency detection's worst nightmare and its perfect subject. It moves, it changes direction, it seems to choose. It flattens one hut and leaves the one beside it untouched. And to a mind built to find intent, that is not physics. That is a decision. That is somebody up there deciding. So they gave the storm a face. Look across nearly every ancient culture on Earth, and you find the same figure standing at the top of the sky, and he is almost always throwing something. The Greeks gave Zeus a thunderbolt he could hurl at the world like a spear. The Norse gave Thor a hammer, and said the thunder was the sound of it striking. In the old Vedic hymns of India, the storm god Indra rides the clouds and splits the sky open. Across much of indigenous North America, the thunderbird beats its wings, and the storms follow. Different continents, different languages, no contact between most of them. And the same answer, over and over, the sky is not empty. Someone lives up there, and when the air turns green and the roar begins, someone up there is angry. But that's only half the story, because the storm gods were never only about fear, they were the first weather report. Naming the storm was the first attempt to predict it, and more importantly, to bargain with it. If the tornado is a who, then a who can be reasoned with. A who can be fed, a who can be pleased. And so came the offerings, the rituals, the dances, the sacrifices laid out under the open sky. Not because ancient people were foolish, because they were doing exactly what you do when you refresh the radar for the 5th time in 10 minutes. They were reaching for control over a thing that offers none. That is what the god really was, not an explanation, a handle, something to hold on to while the world came apart. And it worked in the only way it needed to. It gave people something to do. When the sky turned, you did not just stand frozen in the grass waiting to be erased. You ran to the shrine. You spoke the words. You gave the storm its name and its offering, and even if it changed nothing about the wind, it changed everything about the mind holding it. Terror with no action is unbearable. Terror with a ritual is survivable. The god was a way to keep breathing. But here is where it gets darker, Because once the storm has a mind, the storm can have a reason. And a reason means someone did something. When the tornado tore through the village and took one family and spared another, the survivors were left with a question that no amount of dancing could answer. Why them? Why not us? A storm that chooses is a storm that judges, and so in culture after culture, the weather became moral. The flood was punishment. The lightning was wrath. The whirlwind was sent. To be struck was not just to be unlucky, it was to be marked. Sit with the that for a second. Imagine losing everyone you love to a column of wind and then being told, by your own mind, by your own people, that it happened because of something. That is the price of a sky with a face. You get a god to pray to, but you also get a god who might be pointing at you. And you would think, surely, that we outgrew all of this. That somewhere along the line, science walked in, measured the pressure, mapped the winds, and put the storm gods to rest for good. It is not that simple. It is not simple at all. In the 1880s, a young officer in the United States Army named John Park Finley did something almost no one had done before. He studied tornadoes seriously. He gathered reports, mapped hundreds of them, worked out the conditions that came before them, and began, genuinely, to predict where they might strike. He was, by any honest measure, one of the first real tornado forecasters in history. He had cracked open a door that ancient humans had stood in front of for 100,000 years, and then his own government slammed it shut. Because the officials above him decided that telling people a tornado was coming would cause panic, that the word itself was too dangerous, and so, for decades, the word tornado was effectively banned from official American weather forecasts. Not the storm, the word. The most tornado-prone nation on Earth spent a large part of the 20th century forbidding its forecasters from saying the name of the thing that was killing its people. Read that again, and then think about the ancient mind. Think about the villager who would not speak the true name of the storm, who wrapped it instead in the name of a god, so it could be approached at all. And then think about a modern government, armed with barometers and telegraphs and real science, arriving at the exact same instinct. Do not say its name. Naming it makes it real. Naming it lets the fear out. Thousands of years of progress. And when the sky turned green, we reached for the same reflex our ancestors did. Cover the thing. Rename it. Do not look at it directly. That reflex never left you. It is sitting in your chest right now. Because here is the part that should unsettle you most. You have the phone. You have the basement. You have a satellite 800 miles up watching the exact storm that is watching you. You know precisely what a tornado is. A violently rotating column of air, low pressure, a mesocyclone, all of it. And none of that knowledge does a single thing to the feeling in your stomach when the light goes wrong and the air goes still. The oldest part of your brain does not care what you know. It only knows what your ancestors knew. Something is coming, and it might be coming for you. That green sky still stops you cold. The siren still finds a room inside you that predates language. And for one honest second, before the science kicks back in, you still feel it. The ancient certainty that this is not weather, that this is aimed, that is not weakness, that is inheritance. That flicker of dread is a message passed down through every human who ever stood in open grass and watched the sky come apart and lived long enough to have children who would feel it too. You are the end of an unbroken line of survivors, and the fear in your chest is the thing that kept every one of them alive. So the sky turns the color of a bruise. Your phone screams. You go to the basement, and you pull the mattress over your head, and you count the seconds. But now you know what you are really doing. You are not just taking shelter. You are doing the oldest thing our species has ever done. Somewhere underneath the radar and the concrete and the satellite, some part of you is still standing on an open plain with no roof for miles, no word for what is coming, and no god yet invented to pray to. Just a body and a green sky, and the sky deciding. And you are still, after all this time, watching it decide.